All new for you right here at 4 o'clock. We've got breaking news. Robert Morris, the founding pastor of Gateway Church in Southlake, as you see, being led away here in handcuffs, headed to jail.
A major story has just shaken the Christian world. And this time, it is not about a healing miracle or a record-breaking revival. Names such as Joel Osteen, Benny Hinn, and leaders connected to some of America's biggest churches have found themselves linked to allegations of fraud, bullying, and even secret recordings. For years, these ministries built powerful reputations, but now serious questions are being asked. Are these simply accusations, or do the facts reveal a deeper story? Could this signal the downfall of some of these megachurches? Join us as we uncover the 10 most corrupt churches in America. 10. Lakewood Church. When Joel Osteen took over Lakewood Church after the death of his father, many people were unsure what would happen next. He had never been known as a powerful preacher. In fact, he had spent much of his time working behind the scenes in the church's television ministry. Yet, within a short time, he transformed Lakewood into one of the most recognized churches in America. The church grew at an extraordinary pace. Thousands filled services each week, and millions watched from home. Osteen's message was simple and positive. He spoke about hope, success, confidence, and overcoming difficulties. His books became bestsellers, reaching readers far beyond the church world. As his popularity increased, so did his influence. However, his success also attracted criticism. Many religious leaders argued that his teachings focused too heavily on personal prosperity and not enough on sacrifice, repentance, and hardship. Critics claimed that his message encouraged people to expect material blessings from faith while avoiding difficult subjects often discussed in traditional Christianity. The scrutiny intensified during Hurricane Harvey. As floodwaters devastated parts of Houston, questions emerged about why Lakewood Church had not immediately opened its doors as a shelter. The church stated that flooding and safety concerns affected the facility, but the controversy spread rapidly across social media. For many observers, the incident became a symbol of a larger debate about the role of wealthy churches during times of crisis. Questions about finances also followed Lakewood for years. Although the church maintained that it operated within legal requirements, critics continued to examine its wealth, resources, and spending. Then another unexpected discovery renewed public interest. Workers performing maintenance inside the church found cash and checks hidden within a wall. The discovery attracted national attention because it appeared connected to a theft reported years earlier. Now, let's take a look at how a ministry that inspired millions ended in scandal and prison. Surely, there has to be an explanation for that, right? 9. PTL Ministries. During the rise of television evangelism, few names became more famous than Jim Bakker. Alongside his wife, Tammy Faye Bakker, he built PTL Ministries into a religious powerhouse that reached millions of viewers across America. What began as a ministry eventually grew into a vast organization that combined faith, entertainment, fundraising, and business on an unprecedented scale. The center of Bakker's vision was Heritage USA, a massive Christian retreat and theme park located in South Carolina. Visitors arrived in huge numbers, making it one of the most popular religious destinations in the country. The complex featured hotels, recreational facilities, and attractions designed to create a family-friendly Christian experience. To supporters, Heritage USA represented a remarkable achievement. To critics, it raised questions about whether the ministry had become too focused on expansion and revenue. As PTL grew, so did the lifestyle associated with its leadership. Reports of luxury accommodations and expensive spending created concern among observers who believed donations should primarily support ministry work. At the same time, The organization relied heavily on fundraising campaigns that encouraged supporters to contribute large amounts of money. The situation became far more serious when Jessica Hahn publicly alleged that Bakker had engaged in intimate misconduct. The scandal generated intense media attention and severely damaged the ministry's reputation. Questions soon emerged about payments made to Hahn and how ministry funds may have been used during the aftermath of the allegations. Federal investigators eventually turned their attention toward PTL's financial practices. Prosecutors argued that supporters had been misled regarding fundraising programs connected to Heritage USA accommodations. The case led to federal fraud charges against Bakker. After a highly publicized trial, he was convicted and sentenced to prison. The conviction marked the beginning of the end for the empire he had spent years building. PTL Ministries rapidly lost credibility, financial stability, and public support. Heritage USA declined, and the organization that once appeared unstoppable unraveled under the weight of scandal and legal consequences. If you think this is shocking, wait till you find out what happens when a church becomes a global brand. 8. Hillsong Church. Few churches experienced a rise as remarkable as Hillsong. What began in Australia grew into an international movement with campuses across several countries. Its modern worship music reached millions of people. Its conferences attracted huge crowds, and its influence stretched far beyond church walls. For many young Christians, Hillsong became more than a church. It became a global brand. Part of that success came from its ability to connect with celebrities. Famous athletes, musicians, actors, and public figures were often linked to the church. This attention helped Hillsong gain even more popularity, especially in major cities such as New York and Los Angeles. At the center of much of that attention was Carl Lentz, a charismatic pastor whose style and personality attracted a large following. Lentz became one of the most recognizable faces within the organization. His friendships with celebrities brought even more publicity to Hillsong. However, the image of success began to crack when revelations about his personal conduct emerged. Following an internal investigation, church leaders announced his dismissal. The decision shocked many members and raised questions about leadership oversight within the organization. The controversy surrounding Lentz was only the beginning. Former members and former staff later came forward with allegations involving church culture and leadership practices. Some described experiences they believed reflected unhealthy control, favoritism, or a lack of accountability. These claims generated widespread discussion and placed Hillsong under increasing scrutiny. Attention also shifted to Brian Houston, the founder and longtime leader of Hillsong Church. In January 2022, he stepped aside from his leadership roles after facing criminal charges in Australia for allegedly failing to report information related to child exploitation committed by his father, information he was said to have known since the 1990s. Later, in March 2022, he resigned as global senior pastor after an internal review found that he had breached the church's moral code in his conduct toward 2 women. In August 2023, Houston was found not guilty of the charge related to concealing a serious indictable offense. These events placed him at the center of intense public scrutiny. The ongoing investigations, leadership changes, and public criticism added further instability to the church, and several Hillsong branches around the world eventually began distancing themselves from the global network. 7. Hinn Ministries. For decades, Hinn was one of the most recognizable figures in televangelism. Through large healing crusades held around the world, he attracted enormous crowds seeking hope, prayer, and physical healing. His events often featured emotional testimonies from people who believed they had experienced remarkable recoveries after receiving prayer. These gatherings helped build Hinn's international reputation. Supporters viewed him as a powerful faith healer, whose ministry brought encouragement to people facing illness and hardship. His television broadcasts expanded his reach even further, allowing millions to follow his ministry from their homes. As his influence grew, so did public scrutiny. Journalists and investigators began examining some of the healing claims associated with his crusades. Critics questioned whether certain reported recoveries could be independently verified. These investigations generated debate about the evidence behind some of the testimonies presented during ministry events. Questions also emerged regarding finances. Reports focused on the large amounts of money involved in operating a global ministry. Critics examined fundraising methods and raised concerns about how donations were being used. At the same time, accusations surfaced regarding a luxurious lifestyle that some believed was inconsistent with the values expected of religious leaders. The controversy deepened when former insiders and former associates began speaking publicly about their experiences. Their accounts added to ongoing discussions about transparency and accountability within the ministry. While supporters continued defending Hinn and pointing to the positive impact of his work, critics argued that important questions remained unanswered. Over the years, Hinn also made notable public statements regarding prosperity teaching. He expressed regret about certain approaches to fundraising and distanced himself from some teachings that connected financial giving with guaranteed material rewards. These comments attracted significant attention because prosperity theology had long been associated with many well-known televangelists. 6. Gateway Church. For many years, Gateway Church stood as one of the most influential churches in America. Founded by Robert Morris in Texas, it grew from a small congregation into a massive megachurch with tens of thousands of attendees. Through conferences, books, media appearances, and church campuses, Morris became one of the most recognizable pastors in the country. His teachings reached millions, and his influence extended far beyond the church itself. As Gateway expanded, it built a reputation as a major force in modern evangelical Christianity. Supporters praised its growth, outreach programs, and strong leadership. For a long time, the church appeared stable and successful, attracting members from across the nation. That image changed dramatically when serious allegations involving Morris resurfaced. Claims regarding inappropriate conduct with a minor from decades earlier became public and drew widespread attention. The allegations quickly sparked concern among church members and observers. Questions emerged about who knew about the claims, when they became aware of them, and how the information had been handled over the years. The controversy intensified as legal authorities became involved. Criminal investigations followed, placing both Morris and the church under intense public scrutiny. What had once been viewed as a model megachurch was suddenly facing one of the most difficult periods in its history. The fallout was immediate. Morris resigned from leadership, creating uncertainty within the organization. Church leaders faced the challenge of responding to concerned members while trying to maintain stability. Many attendees struggled with disappointment, confusion, and a loss of trust. Some chose to remain, while others decided to leave. But what happens when a pastor becomes so influential that even political leaders seek his support? 5. New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Few pastors commanded attention quite like Eddie Long. As the leader of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia, he transformed the congregation into one of the largest and most influential churches in the United States. His energetic preaching style, community programs, and public presence attracted thousands of followers and helped establish him as a major religious figure. Under Long's leadership, New Birth experienced remarkable growth. The church expanded its reach and became known for its influence within both religious and public life. Politicians, business leaders, and community figures frequently appeared at church events. His voice carried weight beyond the walls of the congregation, giving him significant influence in local and national conversations. For years, Long's reputation appeared strong. However, that image changed when several young men filed lawsuits alleging inappropriate intimate relationships. The allegations generated immediate national attention and created a storm of controversy around both Long and the church. The claims divided public opinion. Supporters defended their pastor, while critics questioned the allegations and sought accountability. As legal proceedings gained attention, public debate intensified. Although the cases ended in confidential settlements, scrutiny continued, affecting both the church's reputation and Long's public image. 4. Harvest Bible Chapel. For years, Harvest Bible Chapel was one of the fastest-growing churches in America. Founded by James MacDonald near Chicago, it expanded into a large network of campuses and ministries. MacDonald became a well-known pastor through conferences, books, radio programs, and public speaking engagements. His strong personality and direct preaching style attracted a loyal following, helping the church gain influence across the country. As the ministry grew, so did concerns about how it was being led. Questions began to emerge regarding financial management and the use of church resources. Former leaders and members raised concerns about spending practices and decision-making within the organization. These concerns created tension behind the scenes, even as the church continued to appear successful from the outside. The situation became more serious when allegations about leadership behavior surfaced. Critics accused MacDonald of creating an unhealthy environment where disagreement was discouraged and authority was concentrated among a small group of leaders. Former staff members described growing frustration over how concerns were handled within the church structure. Public scrutiny intensified when secret recordings connected to church leadership became known. The recordings fueled controversy and increased pressure on the church's governing board. As more information emerged, disagreements that had once remained private became impossible to ignore. The growing conflict eventually led to an internal rebellion among leaders, former elders, and members who demanded greater accountability. Trust began to break down as divisions widened throughout the organization. What had started as isolated concerns developed into a major crisis that threatened the future of the church. As pressure mounted, church leaders took action. MacDonald was removed from his position, marking a dramatic turning point in the ministry's history. The next church seemed unstoppable, but allegations of bullying and a controversial book sale scheme would eventually change everything. 3. Mars Hill Church. Few churches experienced growth as dramatic as Mars Hill Church. Founded in Seattle by Mark Driscoll, the church began with a small group of followers before expanding into one of the most influential megachurch networks in America. Its energetic style, modern approach, and bold leadership attracted thousands of people, especially younger Christians looking for a fresh church experience. At the center of this growth was Driscoll himself. His preaching drew large audiences, and his books, conferences, and online presence extended his influence far beyond Seattle. As the church expanded into multiple campuses, many supporters viewed him as the driving force behind its success. Over time, however, the church's identity became closely tied to his personality and leadership. While Mars Hill continued growing, concerns about Driscoll's behavior began to surface. Former staff members, church leaders, and members accused him of creating a culture marked by intimidation and harsh leadership practices. Critics claimed that people who questioned decisions often faced pressure or exclusion. The allegations fueled controversy and drew national attention. Questions surrounding the promotion of Driscoll's book intensified scrutiny, while growing criticism exposed divisions within the church. As leaders resigned and members departed, trust in the organization continued to erode. The rapid growth that had once seemed unstoppable was now being overshadowed by controversy. Eventually, the pressure became too great. Driscoll resigned, and the church's leadership faced an uncertain future. Without the figure who had become its central force, Mars Hill quickly unraveled. Campuses separated, operations ended, and one of America's most influential church networks ceased to exist. 2. Jimmy Swaggart Ministries. For many years, Jimmy Swaggart stood among the most powerful televangelists in America. His passionate sermons, gospel music, and television broadcasts reached millions of people around the world. Through his ministry, he built a loyal following and became one of the most recognizable religious figures of his generation. As his influence grew, Swaggart became known for speaking strongly against wrongdoing within religious circles. He publicly criticized ministers whose personal scandals damaged their ministries. To many supporters, he represented moral authority and firm religious leadership during a period when televangelism was becoming increasingly popular. That reputation suffered a devastating blow in the late 1980s. Swaggart became involved in a prostitution scandal that quickly attracted national attention. News of the incident spread across the country, creating shock among supporters and critics alike. The preacher who had spent years condemning moral failure suddenly found himself facing the same type of controversy he had criticized in others. The scandal led to a public confession that became one of the most memorable moments in modern televangelism. While many followers expressed sympathy, others felt deeply disappointed. The incident damaged his standing within religious organizations and brought intense scrutiny to his ministry. The controversy did not end there. Several years later, Swaggart became connected to another scandal involving a prostitute. Although the circumstances differed from the earlier incident, the new controversy reignited criticism and further weakened his public image. As these events unfolded, Swaggart's influence declined. The massive reach he once enjoyed was reduced, and many former supporters moved away from his ministry. Yet, despite these setbacks, he continued preaching and sought to rebuild his organization. But what happens when allegations involve vulnerable members and raise difficult questions about whether church leaders did enough to protect them? 1. The Village Church. The Village Church became one of the most respected megachurches in America during the early years of the 21st century. Based in Texas, it experienced rapid growth and attracted thousands of members through its strong teaching, expanding ministries, and emphasis on church leadership. Its influence reached far beyond its local community, making it a prominent voice within modern evangelical Christianity. Much of the church's reputation was built on its leadership culture. Church leaders promoted accountability, discipleship, and close involvement within the congregation. Supporters viewed this structure as a strength that helped members grow in their faith and remain connected to the church community. Over time, however, serious concerns emerged that challenged this image. The church faced criticism connected to child mistreatment cases involving individuals associated with the congregation. Allegations and legal disputes raised questions about how church leaders responded when complaints were brought forward. These concerns quickly attracted public attention and placed the church under increasing scrutiny. Legal cases filed against the church raised concerns about how allegations of mistreatment had been handled. Critics argued that leaders failed to take sufficient action to protect vulnerable individuals, while supporters maintained decisions were made based on the information available at the time. As the cases gained attention, They sparked broader debates about accountability, leadership responsibility, and the balance between protecting people and preserving an institution's reputation. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.